Hi guys.
5, 4.
Hello, my name is Ian Spetnagel and I'm a senior here at Wheat Ridge High School. Today I'm going to be presenting to you all about why Americans neglect civic engagement, specifically their obligation to vote. Before I get started, quick show of hands, how many of you voted in the 2016 presidential election? Granted, I thought there was going to be more adults here. Before we start, so quick fact. So here in the United States, only 55% of the eligible voting population voted in that election, which is relatively low, it's just above half. So before I start, I'm going to talk to you about why I really enjoy politics and government in specific. So about 5 years ago, in middle school, my history teacher at the time, Craig Denning, urged me to apply for an event called Colorado Legislative Day. So it's sort of an event where middle school and high school kids get to go down to the Capitol and job shadow one of the legislators or congressmen. And so I applied for it, it was great, and I was able to job shadow legislator Dan Pavone. He was the representative of my neighborhood, my zip code at the time, and so I felt like he would be a good choice, primarily just because I could relate to him most closely because he was in my neighborhood. The following year, so my freshman year here at Wheat Ridge High School, I had Tony Romagna as my United States government teacher, and he really kind of turned that interest of politics into a real passion. He was able to convey to me the importance of being educated. He always said that if you're going to have an opinion, you have to know what your opinion is about. And so he was really able to, like I said, turn that interest into a passion. The year after that, I had many of you alike had Miss Rossi for AP US History, which was great. But at the same time, this was right around the time of the 2016 presidential election, when leadership was crucial. There were so many questions about who was going to lead our country in the future, how did we want our leader to represent us. And so she really showed me how important leadership was and all of that. And then last year, my language arts teacher, Angela Pera, understanding that I could always grasp that surface level of comprehension, urged me to dig deeper. How would whatever I was learning affect me, and how would it affect the bigger scale? She wanted me to see the big picture of things. And so all of these combined are sort of everything that has led me to the position I am in today. So, civic engagement. Defined by the American Psychological Association, it is individual and collective actions designed to identify and address issues of public concern. So primarily this is being the leader and being the change in your community. Not only taking initiative to be educated on what's happening, but taking responsibility for it as well. Civic engagement is important for many reasons. Primarily representation. Now, you can really only have a legitimate democracy if it's fully representative, and it can only be fully representative if it's fully participant. So, for example, in the 2012 election between, the presidential election here in the United States between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, there was a lot of misrepresentation based off annual household income. So, for example, 80% of households that had an annual income of $75,000 or greater voted in that election. However, only 60% of the individuals who had an income of $50,000 or less voted in that election. However, income is not the only misrepresented gap. Oftentimes, religion, sex, as well as education and age are gaps that are misrepresented. Part of being a democracy is having a voice and having an obligation to be a part of it. Not only is civic engagement a great way to share your opinion on the job performance of your elected officials, but it's a great way to express your opinions on the subjects that are most meaningful to you. It's a great way to keep your elected officials accountable for what they're doing, and more importantly, what they aren't doing. So, why aren't more people civically engaged? A primary reason is early education. Since elementary, middle, and high school, civic civics, specifically in government, are not topics that are talked about a lot. In a recent survey from 2015, 35% of high school seniors tested below a basic level of civic understanding. A supplemental 39% were right at that basic level. Essentially, this is about 3 in 4 graduating high school seniors who don't have the education it takes to be civically participant and civically involved and educated in our democracy. Additionally, 39 of our 50 states have require at least one passage of one American government or civics course throughout high school. However, only 9 of those demand passage, again, of a statewide test. This leads to voter apathy. If there's no real requirement for individuals to be educated on what's happening, they won't be. Again, this will lead to default party voting. So whether you align yourself more with the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, oftentimes the elected officials that you may be voting for just because of that may not represent your true beliefs. This is a graph of reasons why individuals did not participate in the 2008 presidential election. So if you look at the purple, green, and burgundy sections of this graph, which make up about 45% of it, these are the individuals who did not vote in our country due to illness, a busy schedule, or a dislike of options. If you look at the orange section right here in the bottom right, it's a supplemental 13.4% who truthfully had no interest in voting in this election. And as the smaller the percentages go, the more unreasonable the answers become, such as being out of town or the weather is too bad to vote. This is the reason why we must create an initiative not only to be civically educated, but civically participant. In a study done by the Pew Research Center in comparing the United States to other countries with advanced economies and progressive technology, that's what constitutes a developed nation. The United States ranked 31st in voter turnout. However, we ranked 4th in voter registration. So as you can see here, 87% of eligible voters in the United States are registered. However, since 1972, we've only surpassed that 60% mark of voter turnout twice. So, what can we do about this? What's interesting as well is that Americans are we do want to talk about politics. We have lawn signs and bumper stickers. We are aware of everything that's happening, especially with social media. When someone dies or someone is elected into office, oftentimes we hear about it, we just don't necessarily care about it. We must create some sort of incentive or some sort of reason for Americans to go out of the way to be participant in our system. Right now, there's no voter accountability. So, as I said, what can we do about this? The first way is compulsory voting. Almost 30 countries around the world have compulsory or mandated voting. Oftentimes, the result of an election may not be what the entire population desires. However, because a certain group or a certain amount of people turned up at the polls, that is the result that prevailed. Granted, even if we were to institute a national or state laws regarding this, it wouldn't be entirely supported, so it would have to be mandated by some sort of fine, punishment, or consequence. Another way is auto-registration. If you compare there's 2 nations in the world, which are Sweden and Germany, who have this already instituted, and we would be able to reduce the hassle and burden of registering to vote. A lot of times people use that as some sort of an excuse. Oh, it's too difficult to register. Oh, I don't have a ballot. That's why they don't vote. However, Sweden has an average voter turnout of 86%, and Germany 66% alike. These are much higher numbers than what we have here in the United States. Another way that we could change this is through weekend voting. If we were able to change that first Tuesday in November, to the weekend before, or even the weekend after, many more people would most likely turn up at the polls. France and Thailand both have instituted this and actually made it a national holiday, and have significantly higher turnout rates than they did before they changed the date. Furthermore, what we would like to do is create more accessibility. More people will vote if it's easier for them to do so. Right now, the United States has about 13,000 election jurisdictions. Therefore, if we were to create a more centralized process, potentially without an electoral college, we would reduce voter discrimination and voter suppression legislation. Estonia, which is a country right around Russia, introduced online voting in 2005. However, in that 2005 election, only about 2% of the voters took advantage of that, and by 2011, 25% of them did. If we were able to create some sort of system like this in the United States, more people with access to technology and the prevalence of smartphones and tablets and computers would most likely turn up to the polls. One main caution with this is online security, however, and hacking and stuff like that. Estonia has reported no problems to this point in regards to that. With this, we would also be able to diminish the reasons as to why people didn't vote on that graph seen earlier, such as lack of transportation or individuals who may or may not be disabled, or if they're short on time, if you can do it on the bus or whenever you have the chance on your phone instead of taking that 10 minutes to check Facebook. If you were able to vote, more people would most likely do so. The greater the representation we have, the better democracy we're going to have. Other ways that individuals can get involved are volunteering. My last bullet up there, Volunteer Match, is a website in which you can use your zip code or your local area to search up volunteer opportunities. Whether you need this for community service hours or simply just want to be more engaged in your community, this is a great way to be aware about volunteer opportunities around you. Another way is civic education. Not only talking to your kids or your friends, potentially over a cup of coffee. You would be able to not only just raise the discussion, but educate more people on what's happening. When more people are educated on what's happening, they're most likely to want to participate in that system and be a part of it. The City Council and Chambers of Commerce are great networking opportunities. Whether you would want to be a member of this or just sit in on one of their meetings, it's a great way to be educated on what's happening around your community, in your state, and even on a national level as well. And finally, outreach. So whether this is going door to door with a petition or canvassing for a certain issue candidate, this is a great way to, again, raise the conversation and get more people talking about what's necessary. I'm going to leave you with a quote today. So when you are involved with an issue or you have an issue with someone, don't necessarily make it you versus that person. Try and make it you and that person versus the issue. We're all in this together, and so we need to be more united and have everyone be more civically educated and engaged to make a better democracy for all of us. Thank you for your time.